Primary ignition.
Welcome to Unlimited Power. My name is D-Rod, and I'm going to tell you all about how the largest Star Wars Unlimited prized event on the West Coast went this last weekend here in Washington State. If you weren't familiar with this, there was a big event hosted by an organization called Summercon. Summercon is your typical convention that meets once a year here in Washington State, where they host a lot of voice actors, writers, artists, bring in a lot of things. It was really great as far as a con perspective. Lots of great costumes. They had a full Star Wars section where you can get pictures. You had people selling comics, toys, cosplay, costumes, and gear, all types of things. You actually had several voice actors from some amazing Star Wars shows out there, like Clone Wars, Bad Batch, um, and so on. It was really cool. Even had one of my favorite writers, Timothy Zahn, who brought us one of the greatest characters in Star Wars outside of the films, which was the Grand Admiral Thrawn. So really great to meet him, meet a couple voice actors, but as well as to attend this type of event. If you live in the Northwest area, you probably heard of this 5K, or if you've been following my videos for the past couple months, you know I've also been prepping for that. I've been spending a couple of months just working on Iden. Last big event I went to before I switched to Iden was another 1K event. And since then, I've just been taking Iden to multiple 1K events here in the area, store championships, as well as doing a lot of practicing online. Overall, I know I have over 100 hours logged with Iden. You'll see many of those hours logged here online in any of my YouTube videos as we went through, played different matchups, tried different card combinations to try to get what I think was going to be the most optimal Iden deck we could build. But this was a great time to kind of bring this. Of course, I was always intimidated to bring Iden, knowing that although she's good, she's not winning a lot of the events I brought her to. So I wanted to make sure I got in some more practice the week before. Met with a bunch of people who are prepping for 2Ks and the 5K here in the Northwest area. And we just sat down for another 8 hours and just grinded so many games in the gauntlet matchups. Gauntlet matchups, if you're unfamiliar, are when you're literally playing against tier 1 decks over and over and over. And I just spent my time playing decks like Han. Whether you're Han Green or Han Blue, folks my time playing Emperor Palpatine Blue, Boba Yellows, Boba Blues, and Sabine Reds and Greens. I had a great time. Really appreciate everyone who's helped me and supported me along the way, whether you were just watching or you were playing or giving insights on some of the videos. Again, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Iden deck that I brought to this 5K. Before we move any further, let's show you the essentially the tools we brought. So you'll be able to find this deck in the description down below. There's a link to it, and we have it it's posted in SWDB. And this is what we ended up taking. So Iden, Energy Conversion Lab, this was going to be the setup here. I think a Conversion Lab was a better choice than bringing in a Command Center. If I lost because I didn't have enough health, I didn't really feel like that extra 5 was going to be worth it. It was all about using ECL at the right time, whether that was to ramp up with something like Super Laser Tech and hopefully trade into a unit, or using some of the units like Rook or Gideon Hask. So my deck is pretty similar to everything here. You see Inferno 4, Viper Probe Droid, Death Troopers. Those are going to be your common 2 to 3 drops you're going to see. This is where I start mixing it up. I only ran 2 Viper Probe Droids in the main board and 2 Seasoned Shore Troopers. I really wanted those Shore Troopers to come in a little bit more in the late game when you're pulling them in with Vader, or if you just need to drop them in just because they get that bonus after you have 6 resources. 6 resources, really easy to hit. Another interesting choice I made here was Del Meeko, really filling in the whole Inferno squad. Here, which is I was really proud that this worked. Del Meeko really put something I don't want to say put any of my opponents on tilt, but it definitely made them have to reconsider what they were going to do. He was a target for a lot of my opponents. Usually if he hit the board, everyone wanted to swing into him because they didn't want to see the restore, or they didn't want to have to pay 1 more. It bought me some time as well from cards like Power of the Dark Side. And it was fine if any opponents really wanted to pay one extra to play a defeat event on him, like Vanquish or Takedown. Perfectly fine with something like that. We kept 3 Power of the Dark Sides, 3 Super Laser Techs, 3 Star Vipers, and we went down to 2 resupplies. Resupply was probably the one I was really hesitant about dropping to 2, but I think I'm okay with it overall for a couple of reasons I'll discuss later. We brought in Cell Block Guard, 2 of those, 3 Vigilances, of course, 2 Takedowns, 2 Gideons, 2 Vanquishes, 2 Rooks. Pretty much those 4 cards are all very spot removal. Gideon, although he can do something, I really wanted Gideon to be kind of that heavy hitter who came in with the ECL. Very little time did people allow Gideon to stay into play. But if he did come into play and without the ECL, knowing that I was going to keep him in play, it was usually against aggro matches that were running out of steam. And I wanted to kind of put that big threat on the board. Overwhelming Barrage is obviously another great one, especially when you're playing this many small units. You can really give yourself 4 to 5 extra damage. You can spread around once you hit your 5 resources. Of course, we ended up running 3 Vaders, 2 Super Laser Blast, 2 Avengers, 2 Reinforcement Walkers, and 2 Relentless. This was all my main board. The strategy here with this deck, if you haven't seen me play it, is mostly just to kind of, you're either going to ramp as quickly as you can and try to trade where you are to essentially just get closer to Darth Vader. Or if you were playing a little bit more control, you can hold back a little bit and just kind of play as you need based on the board state. So if you look at the sideboard there, we're still running a couple other things. We do have the restock package. We have Making Openings, Traitorous, 2 Count Dooku's, that Viper Probe Droid, Super Laser Blast, and 2 Devastators. Now, this board is a little bit more, again, still of that mix of if I need to play a little bit more control, I can by bringing in the Devastator, or if I need something like Make an Opening, something like that. But a lot of it does help more in those aggro mid-range packages when we're looking at stuff like Sabine or Boba. So hence Making Openings, those types of things. But let's talk about how I ended up doing at that event. So I did make top 8 the event, officially ranked 6. The event was really great. I had a really amazing time. We went up with just a couple of people. There was about, I want to say 6 of us. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Yeah, there were 6 of us who went from the Portland area. So I was super glad that we were all there. Portland had its own big event that weekend as well with a 2K that had over 100 players at that event, which was pretty awesome. This event was a lot smaller just because people did have to pay for the convention fee as well as the tournament fee to get in. So it was a little pricey, especially if we ended up having to go to day 2. But really wanted to go because it was a guaranteed prize payout from the local store RPG Outfitters. So real, a lot of props to them for taking a chance, doing a big 5K event and still paying out to everyone who was there with store credit. So that was really great. But I was super happy that this group of guys went. We play tested a lot. We played there. It was a great time. Of course, some of us got matched up against each other, as it happens when you travel with a group to an event. But that's just the same old story, right? So overall, the event was really well done. Um, Iden definitely had to face a few Sabines in the first couple of matches. How did I handle Sabines? A lot better than I thought. Overall, Iden probably has a 60-70% chance of beating Sabine. You really do have to have the best cards in hand, and you need Sabine to not have a strong hand herself. If she has a perfect hand, there really isn't anything you can do. Luckily, most of my opponents were playing Sabine Green and Sabine Yellow rather than Sabine Reds. So I had a little bit of more room to work around, especially after sideboarding. I wasn't too worried about seeing Saw Gerreras. I wasn't worried about seeing Aggressions. Those 2 cards really just kind of, go through my deck really hard. But most of the deck, I don't have to change up too much to deal with what they have. A lot of these units can just trade into theirs, and then it was just about having them run out of steam. And especially because most of them weren't even playing for surrender, or they just weren't getting it. So both of those games actually went 2-0 to me. Sabine just really wasn't there at this event, at least in not anything that I was facing, which was great. Again, that was probably going to be my hardest matchup. Um, the one deck that did give me a little bit of trouble was one I was really struggling with a lot of play testing, and that was Palpatine Blue. Palpatine Blue can just ramp quicker than I can. It's going to play a lot of the same units as me, and its goal is to get the Relentless out first. A lot of times in these control matchups right now in the blue-green, it's all about who gets Relentless out. After Relentless is out, you really have to start focusing on having units that can help you deal with Relentless to remove it. But it does feel like you're really behind because no matter what, you're probably going to be spending 2 cards to get rid of one. That's what it kind of came down to with me and Palpatine Blue. We played match 1, it went to them. Played match 2, went to me. 2 minutes left in the match. You can guess how that was going to end, right? Blue green versus blue green. Very difficult. Was going to go to time. I know that. Just one of those things that happen. I healed a lot and I got through it. One of the things I decided to do with this matchup, though, when I went to game 2, I wanted to try something else. I play tested a lot of Palpatine Blue the week before, and I couldn't win a single match. But and credit to the guy who I was playing, great player here in the local area, Rob. He's amazing. Um, but I decided to try something differently, and I decided to take out a lot of my removal events, and I just flooded everything else with units. So in this example, I took out Overwhelming Barrages, which is 3 cards, took out the 2 takedowns, and took out 2 of the 2 of the vanquishes, so that already gave us like 5 cards. So all I did to replace that was I went with Dooku, went with the Devastator, and then I felt like, you know what, I need to add something else. So took out one more Power of the Dark Side, added in the Super Laser Blast, just to give myself some room here. I should have added the restock, but I'll be honest with you, and I didn't, knowing that I could use that to help me with the Relentless. But without playing a lot of other events, that's just what I was going to go with. I didn't want to take out Vigilance because Vigilance is a little bit more utility based, but that seemed to really help. It kind of kept a lot of more bodies on the board that Palpatine had to deal with. And without Palpatine blowing up his own board, I was able to just kind of flood things in, swing, 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 and eventually defeat my opponent. Knowing that I couldn't beat them on the ramp, I at least could keep them from using their abilities to defeat one of their units to draw a card. That was really helpful. As the tournament continued, it was mostly aggro going forward and a little bit of mid-range. When I found myself against some more mid-range control, I did the same thing. This was one of those things I think that really benefited me by, again, sitting in that control matchup, knowing that there was going to be some lockdowns. I decided the best thing for me to do is stop playing one unit a turn, like Rook and Gideon and a Avenger, and start trying to put out 2 to 3. At one point, I was super satisfied in the game 3 against a control matchup where I ended up having 3 Vaders in hand by the time I hit 7 resources. 3 Vaders and a Vigilance. I needed to resource up, but it felt like the best thing to do was to stay at 7, play the Vader, fish out the defeat event, and put another unit into play with his other ability. That's exactly what I did. Vader came out, killed one of the units, brought someone in. They'd killed Vader. Second turn. Vader comes out again, kills a unit, another unit in play. Now I'm already at 3 units. He has no other answers at this point. I'm continuing to ramp and just continuing to flood the board, knowing that this mid-range deck that is not playing blue, or sorry, isn't playing green, is going to really struggle. I knew they knew they wanted to prevent me from getting Relentless out, but they were so worried about Relentless that they weren't really considering how many other units I was going to put out on the board, and I really think that worked in my favor. That was actually one of my final matches before I moved into the top 8. Now, top 8 was a great time. I was pretty glad that I made it. I'm excited to see my name. Not only that mean that I was hitting the, 3-digit prize there as far as a payout, it meant that I had a chance of going a little bit further than that. Unfortunately, I saw the pairings, and if you're unfamiliar, I got paired up with one of the better players in Star Wars Unlimited, known as Mango. So Henry here, aka Mango, is the same person who won the Portland 1K event and the Star City Games Open in Vegas just last month. So, if you were to ask me who's one of the best players in Star Wars Unlimited, I'm definitely going to point to Henry. I saw him sitting there. I knew he was going to be at the event because he lives in Northern Washington. Him and his group, Cloud City Rollers, were there, and they were great people. Happy I got to play Henry out of that group, but of course I knew what was going to happen. Henry was bringing his same deck he played at the Portland 1K, which I was watching the whole time, especially when they were playing against another Iden player. And it was a pretty strong deck. So if you're unfamiliar with it, here's a quick look at that deck. It is Han Green, very utility based. Ramp is just on point. There wasn't a lot I could do here. I was glad to play him. I told him, I'm pretty sure how I knew it was going to end, especially after watching him at the 1K. He knows a lot of the answers for Iden, strong player, like I said. But you can kind of see here, there's a lot of those low cost options that are going to give you trouble. Things like Greedo, Leia, Mon Mothma's going to pull what you need, Spark Rebellions, Millennium Falcons. I mean, I was just getting surprise striked left and right, and I could not heal or keep units in play long enough to really get a board presence. My ramp just wasn't hitting me either. So mulligan both times, couldn't get what I needed to get that ramp out there and at least blast the board, have them start over. But again, had a lot of fun. Henry is an amazing player, and if you get to see him at some of the big events, it's just I mean, it's one of the top, honestly. So it's hard for you to tell me that there's another better player out there, but you'll definitely won't find a better player, I would say, on the West Coast. So all in all, it was a really great time. So I think the Portland 5 or the Washington State 5K was uh, could have been done better in some aspects, but I had a great time. I enjoyed prepping for this event. Again, I appreciate everyone who watched me on that journey of going through that training journal. And as we approach Shadows of the Galaxy, I'm more excited to see what happens here in the Northwest area. We already had a 2K, a 1K, a 5K. There are more stores picking this game up, especially in the Portland area. And it's we're already at the point where you can find one or two Star Wars events every night of the week. I love it. I love it. So if you're thinking about where to visit and where to play Star Wars Unlimited, I cannot say it more. Come out here, check out the Northwest, check out our servers, check out our in Discord, check out our socials and Facebook. There's plenty of places to play. Leave your comments, ask me where you're looking to play when you visit town. But again, amazing time. I'm looking forward to the next big event, whether it's hosted by RPG Outfitters, a local store here in Portland, or somewhere else here on the West Coast. And hopefully I'll see y'all there. So thanks again. Thanks for following. Thanks for watching. And may the force be with you.